Typically, in the September timeframe, just prior to
Okay.
October town meeting. And free cash is the result of the difference between what we've collected and what we've spent. But there's a couple of subtleties which are probably different than business aspects that you've been used to, and that one of them is that, you know, at the end of the fiscal year, it's like the town went away and it starts all, it's a brand-new town.
Mm-hmm.
There is some subtlety, though. Uncollected real estate taxes, that, in other words, if we used, a simple example, if we used, we were gonna collect $20 million in real estate taxes, and we collected 19 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? That doesn't show up as a shortfall in revenue for the year, because the DOR looks at it as it'll eventually turn into a tax lien, it's an asset on the books, but that's the only kind of thing that gets
Right.
carried forward. So we end up with look at it as a bucket that has $1 million, it's $1 million empty.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if we had turned back from unspent budgets and maybe additional collections, $1 million, we'd have zero free cash, because you have
Okay.
to fill the bucket first,
Got it.
okay?
Yep.
So
So-
that's the subtlety.
Yeah, and I have a couple questions on the sheet, but just to make sure I understand them, the
Well,
variance.
Joe is gonna go through it.
I'm gonna run through it,
Okay.
if that helps.
But I just wanted to
That would be
get
great.
that concept.
Yeah, no, it's
Okay.
good.
And the other
So it's
piece,
free
the
cash.
other piece of it is, for example, unpaid real estate taxes, right?
Yep.
At the end of the year. I mean, some people are late and they get paid in July, but others may, you know, not be. And we've been looking at the trend associated with the economic downturn, right?
Mhm.
Did we get more or less this year than last? And so on and so forth.
Right.
And it's kind of where we've been trying to get to. So we have an appreciation and understanding of, you know, what is this current FY 2011 going to look like? And as we begin the budget process, we may, you know, utilize that information to make further
Yeah.
adjustments in the way we estimate our revenue for FY 2012.
It's good, that makes sense.
You got that? You've already got that, so.
Okay.
Joe?
Do you have, there's a
Yeah,
2010 sheet first?
Sure.
We start off on July 1, we book what we call a preliminary commitment, which is usually half of the previous year's actual commitment. Then when the tax rate is set in November, December, then the difference is the actual commitment. The difference between the preliminary and the new actual is booked, the difference. So it went from 16,033,000 to 16,009,000, right, if you follow this?
Yeah, so you're saying the preliminary commitment for the real estate, you
It's
take
always the half of the year that just
first
ended.
half, which is
Right.
up to July 1st.
Right.
Or is it up to?
No, it's,
30
I think it's by law. We
It's
have to
last
look
year's.
at last year's number.
Right.
And we're doing estimated tax bills
Yeah.
until we set the tax rate. So the August and November tax bills are estimated,
Estimate, okay.
right? And once
Yep.
the tax rate is set, your February and May tax bills have an adjustment, right? It usually goes up.
Right.
And it
So
goes
that's
up
that
more
actual.
than what would be the average 4-month bill to cover the difference of the first 2 months.
See,
that
the
first two
16,033 does not include the 2.5% that you're allowed to increase. It doesn't include new growth.
Mm-hmm.
So when all those are factored in, you needed 16.9 to get to the actual tax rate, which would be like 34,000,009 if you add those two together. So it's gonna be a little more than half, because you've gotta add in those other factors I just mentioned. The 2.5, automatic 2.5% growth,
Yeah.
and then the new growth.
So you're adding those two numbers together?
And that would equal the actual tax levy that we certify in November or December.
Excuse me, you said 34, did you mean 32.9?
32, yes.
Make sure I'm on the same
Yeah.
page.
That's why I asked if he's adding those together, because.
I'm adding
Yeah.
those together.
Okay.
Yeah,
Those
okay.
two
Makes
together
sense.
should equal what the actual was.
Yep.
So what's the revised and omitted commitment?
There's
What's
things
that?
that he picked up that didn't make it on the tax bills, that didn't make it on the tax levy. So those were added to the tax levy.
Okay.
So now we get a number, what we committed in real estate was 32,992. We have to look at personal property in order to get a complete picture. And let me run through it, and I'll tell you why you need it. Same thing happens with personal property. You have your preliminary commitment, you have then your actual commitment, and again, we had some revised and omitted. So our personal property committed is 772,000. The total committed is 33,765,000. Now, on the next line, amount per budget projection, those sheets we look at on Friday morning, that has real and personal. So that 33,754 is what we've been using on our revenue projections that we do our budgets on. So you want to compare that to what was committed, and we ended up committed about $10,000 more.
Which is a little bit of a surprise to me, meaning that I would have expected that difference to be bigger. Which means that, you know, in our actual projection, right, we've pretty much nailed it right on the dollar amount.
Right, because we know what 2.5% is going to be.
Yeah.
Then we update it for the actual new growth.
Mhm.
So we're pretty much in the
Okay.
ballpark. And then these revised and omitted change it a little bit.
Okay, so that's all well and good. Now, the issue is, what did
What
we
did you
really
collect?
collect?
All right.
Before you do that, though, so just make sure I understand
Yeah.
you correctly. The variance, which you have favorable next to it.
Yeah,
Whereas the parentheses mean, if there was parentheses around that $10,900, that would have been a favorable number? So
No,
is that
this is
No,
variance-
no, that's favorable.
That
I
is
probably
favorable, okay.
should have put parentheses. I'm
That's
saying the
confused me a
favors,
little bit.
I should have put, the variance is favorable, which means we committed more than we budgeted.
Okay, because when I first read it, I said, oh, we're under 10,000,
No.
we underspent, we undercollected to over 10,000.
No.
No,
Well,
it's
I-
got nothing to do with it.
Okay,
Nothing to do with collections, but if we collected everything we committed, we would have collected $10,000 more than on the budget.
that's your free cash that you
No,
referred to?
No, no, no.
no.
Stop a minute,
Right.
okay?
Okay,
What he's talking about is what we used in our revenue plan,
Yeah.
okay, which is how the budget is developed,
okay,
was $33,754,100.
okay, so this number
What-
you used,
Right, that's,
See, when we did the 2010 budget, which we ended up balancing, this is what we had for total taxes.
that's your budgeted number,
That's what we budgeted, that's what we based the 2010 budget on.
okay.
When everything was all said and done and
Yep.
the tax was levied, we ended up billing $10,000 more.
Okay,
Now, collecting
got
it
it, now I understand.
is a whole nother ballgame.
right. All right,
So
so,
during, during 2010, we collected 32,581,676. Now, how was that collected? The first three numbers, 05, 07, 08, means we paid out money. That's why there's brackets around it, that people overpaid. People,
filed for abatements? No,
very few.
yeah.
People could have refinanced their mortgage, and sometimes the mortgage company and the customer both pay the bill, because they don't know because they're in between. So, we end up giving refunds, and that's where that 18,000, 38,000, and 30,000 come in. We gave out more than we collected in those years, because we were all collected, or they went to tax titles. So there were refunds given. 2009, collections, we collected 347,521 of last year's real estate taxes. And I think that's the number Bob is very interested in.
Yeah, and I wanted to see it broken down this way too. I think it's
Oh, good, so it worked.
easier to analyze
Okay.
where we are in terms of trends.
And for 2010, the actual year we're in, we collected 32,320,888. Now, I did the same thing for personal
John?
property.
In quick question. That FY 2009, that's that first quarter or final quarter?
That's the year.
347,
The 347, it's what people didn't pay
throughout the whole year.
all year. It could have been the last quarter. More than likely, it would be the last quarter, because this is collected in 2010 that belonged to, it should have been
2009
collected.
Overall, whether it was last quarter or first quarter.
Right.
doesn't make- Okay.
But-
Thank you.
So I did the same thing for personal property, and that's, not much happened in fiscal '08 and '09, but the big collection for 2010 was the 755,000. Now, I guess the comparisons, if we committed real estate at 32,992, we collected 32,320,000, and it shows a variance of 671,282.
Joe, as of what date is that collected amount?
As of June 30th, I went and I had 11 months on the books, and I did a month manually. Now, a little bit of more information on the 671. $164,384 of that has been added, what we call subsequent year taxes added to tax title. So the real variance, if we're gonna compare it to '09, should
Explain
be,
that, can you stop and explain that?
yes.
Quiet, please.
There's 671,282.66 can be reduced by 164,384 because they were subsequent years. These people that already had taxes and tax title, and subsequent years automatically go to tax title, and they haven't been recorded on our books. I did this manually.
What's that number again?
The subsequent years added to tax title is 164,384.30, which means the variance now is 506,898. With me?
Repeat that number, please.
We started with the 671.
In terms of an asset,
We
But
just
in terms of cash
reclassified the
flow-
action. It's
but in terms of-
reclassified.
It's reclassified, right. Because
but
one
in
is
terms
a
of
tax
cash
credit.
flow,
What was the number again, Joe? I was-
164,384 and 30 cents to be exact.
Oh, okay.
so those are property owners that are already in tax title, so their future years' real estate tax bills automatically go into tax title.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was done the end of June. Still has to be updated on our, on the ledger, but it's there manually.
So their FY 11 bill, real estate tax bill automatically goes into tax title.
Not until June. This is all done in June. That's why it wasn't recorded. This is all done in June by the treasurer collector.
Now, so the variance, in other words, the variance is what, is the difference between the commitment and the collection of just FY 2010, correct?
Correct,
On this
correct.
page.
That's what we wanted to see.
Right, so that, and I wanted to compare that against the variance last year to see which direction we were going in. But I think Sean has pointed out
I think-
there's an error on 2009 in terms of,
I think what you did in 2009, when you compared the committed versus collected, you took the total collected amount and not what was collected for FY 2009 real estate taxes, Joe.
Ah, yes, you're right.
So I think the variance there, the variance is
did you,
813,398.31.
18?
813,398.31.
Right, so you've got to add back the 425.
Yeah.